Welcome back to the NoBS show. Mainstream media's literal brain rot. Let's try and set some of this straight. We're going to start with some history. We're going to cover why Putin did what he did and what's going to be next. Boom. Let's first straighten a few things out. Putin is a smart guy, a very smart guy. There's a lot of people saying he's stupid or he's like Hitler. He's not like Hitler. We'll cover why in a moment. But in the previous video, I said I did not expect Russia to do anything. They have, obviously. Now, I have no confusion over why, though. And it seems like a lot of people are confused on the why. So let's go ahead. I'm going to play a clip real quick that I think is great insight to this. So let's hit that clip.
A memo that was written by Bill Burns back in 2008. So Bill Burns is the current DCI. He's the Director of Central Intelligence, the head of the CIA. He is also a Russian expert. He speaks Russian fluently. He spent many years over there in our government, and he works for Biden. He's Biden's head of the CIA. So he is the highest ranking Russian expert in our government. In 2008, he wrote a memo to Condoleezza Rice, who was then the Secretary of State. And what he said is, this is about Ukrainian entry into NATO. He said, Ukrainian entry into NATO is the brightest of all red lines for the Russian elite, not just Putin. He says, in more than 2.5 years of conversations with key Russian players, from knuckle draggers in the dark recesses of the Kremlin to Putin's sharpest liberal critics, I have yet to find anyone who views Ukraine and NATO as anything other than a direct challenge to Russian interests.
All right, so the important thing to take away from there is Russia's been very consistent. And some context, the 2008 situation was when Russia was invading Georgia. Now, back then, we had McCain coming out saying that, we are all Georgians, we must defend this. And the whole issue there was that Georgia was going to be added to the UN, and then Putin moved in because he sees these countries being added to the UN as a direct attack on the security of Russia. And there is a base case there for that as well. So from his perspective, these things actually make sense. And the timing of him doing this, as I've iterated many times, is like he has full control over the energy. And we'll touch on that more in a moment. Now, the difference between Georgia or, the other territories that Putin's invaded is that Ukraine is the size of France, all right? There's 44 million people in this country. This is a very large country. People are thinking that he's just going to set up a government and to just be able to peace out. No way. That's not going to happen. This is going to turn into a guerrilla warfare type situation. He's going to need to keep forces deployed there to keep whatever he sets up in control. So this really does weaken and extend Russia. All right. So this is why we saw the crash. I've seen some people say, oh, the Russian market crashing is an indication that these sanctions are working. These sanctions are useless. You just need to do a little bit of historical analysis to realize that sanctions don't work. They don't stop conflict. But I'm fairly certain that our leaders knew this. They're straight bluffing Russia. And, there could have been, and lots of people are theorizing, other diplomatic solutions that we could have done to prevent this from even happening that weren't done at all. Instead, we more have accelerated, pushed Russia to want to do this. There's a lot of conversations around Russia then extending past this and going on a rampage through Europe. We deployed troops to Europe to defend the UN because that's what we can actually defend, right? So this whole idea of like, why didn't we set up for a military engagement in Russia? Because of China. We can't do that because of China. If we overextend ourselves in Russia, we open ourselves up to a conflict in Taiwan, which is way more existential to us. In the globe, really. We do not want China getting involved in this. We don't want to provoke them. Yes, we probably placate to them too much, but this is a situation that our poor leadership has put us in, okay? So reacting in an emotional way now is not going to help anything. We don't want bloodshed. This Cold War situation, which is where we're at now. This is where we're at. The world, it's pretty clear to me, we're giving up on Ukraine. And Ukraine is all over Twitter posting memes now, and wanting to start Twitter storms. I don't know. And we're sending weapons there, which we have done in the past with other conflicts. We're providing goods and weapons, and that's, I think, the extent of what this goes to. Now, if media keeps pounding the war drums and we go to war with Russia, China will move on Taiwan. That kicks this up to a whole nother level. I can't reiterate enough times how much we don't want that. If you think the sanctions are going to cause Russia to pull out of Ukraine, think again. Not going to happen. The EU is doing these sanctions on Russia. I'm not even sure if they can maintain them. You have to understand that they hurt significantly from this. They have no independence when it comes to energy, and they've done nothing to circumvent this issue. So Germany, especially, they've been very backwards. They've been very against nuclear energy, whereas France was, France is fine. Why? Because France actually innovated and made themselves energy independent. The rest of Europe, not so much. Now, what we could do if we didn't have terrible policies is help supplement this in Russia and send them natural gas. But we're not really in a position to do that because we pulled back on fracking, and we aren't using good energy alternatives. So this situation is where it's at, not just because of Putin. And again, this is a terrible crisis. I understand, but I'm not gonna not say the truth, and the truth is that. And I know lots of people are already coming out, just like they did with previous wars. We're like, oh, if you don't want to go to war with Russia, you're not a patriot now. Or the same thing they said with Vietnam and Afghanistan. Nonsense. Stop that. That's you placating to a team and getting too caught up in nonsense. Okay. We don't want war. We don't want more conflict. We don't want to overextend ourselves in this way. This would be so bad for everyone if we continue to accelerate this situation. The best course of action is to try and defuse this as fast as possible. Now, I don't think this conflict's over either. I see lots of people on Twitter saying, oh, well, this is the bottom. Buy in. I'm like, why would you buy? You can't predict geopolitics. Take everything I just said and give it some consideration. The energy issues will be persistent. We've also seen a huge currency battle going on. The U.S. dollar is starting to accumulate, so you should be aware of the dollar milkshake theory, which is in the Discord. Please read up on that because that could come into play over the course of the year, and that's something to consider. But I don't think it's a good time to say, oh, I'm gonna buy blindly into a bunch of chaos because this is the bottom of the market. Excuse me? No. If China enters this, $100 down on the S&P index easily, and this is a new Cold War. All right, we've already got reports of U.S. doing cyber attacks on Russia. Different Russia websites are going down. There's going to be retaliation for the sanctions as well, and I think it's Russia and China have already come out and said this is the new Cold War. This is now a technology race. This is a whole different type of combat. We're not going to see these World War III fears, these war drums. That could not be the worst. I mean, there could not be a worse reaction to this. And the way that people are trying to paint Putin and the way they're trying to get everyone riled up and everyone's super emotional about this cannot be a worse reaction. And the other people who are like, oh, the sanctions are going to fix everything. No, they're not. Not at all, in the slightest. So, we've got that laid out. Kind of understand what's going on now. I think there's going to be some guerrilla warfare. We've seen lots of reports. Russia's pretty much taken out all their anti-aircraft. They've pretty much are probably going to lock down the country, and they're going to need to stay occupied there. And so what we need to see, and what we'll hopefully see, is the EU finally unite, work together, create energy independence. Issue here being is it's going to take years for them to do that. Years. The first thing they need to do today, right now, is to pull back on regulations of nuclear energy. Same with us, and we need to immediately start implementing that. And they need to get more solar power, and we need to start sending natural gas over there. If you're an investor, know that the exports out of Russia are still needs. They need to be replaced. So you should be looking at Latin America. You should be looking at Brazil. You should be looking at different areas that are going to fill the needs for those, because it's not like we're going to stop ordering those. We still need those products. And so I've I've been buying up some miners. I'm also looking at copper. I'm still holding energy, still holding uranium. I think we've seen oil pull back a bit. No surprise there. Oil tends to lag behind the S&P index. So now people are asking me about that, and I said there's going to be a correction, but I think that oil will be persistently high. We've seen a little correction. I think now we're going to be persistently high, and we could see more corrections and lots of volatility. I think volatility is far from over. We've still got this. This could develop and change rapidly, especially if we keep pounding the war drums, especially if we keep trying to provoke Putin into a position where he feels like he needs to defend himself. Okay, because if Ukraine joins the UN, it's right on the border of Russia. It's you could set up for a position of attack or load up more equipment there. This is, in his eyes, an existential threat to them, as we've iterated. So I think I'm hounding on that a little too much, but it's just really important, and I feel like people just don't get it because I've seen so few people say things that make sense. And the threats here are really real. And I'd like to end this on a more positive note, and it's going to be a sweet and sour, but I think the one thing that we can say is hopefully there's more unification and more working together, and we come to some sort of agreement between our allies, and we get some more cooperation, and we see ties kind of strengthen from this. And I think we could also see a bunch of innovation during this time period when you think about all the innovation we had during the last Cold War type conflict. And so the hope would be that we kind of tone down tensions in this area, and then we enter this new, it's going to be tense. It's going to be persistently tense. I think volatility in the markets will stay high to reflect that. But cyber attacks, and we were talking to the Discord today, and I think it's really important to also reiterate, like, if you have a crypto wallet and it's not an actual device, a cold wallet that you keep on you, it's somewhere online, be careful. All right, risk management does not just apply to trades. These can be hacked, they can be swiped, and this suddenly also explains a lot of the big whale movements where we saw someone move like $140 million out of their crypto wallet and back to Coinbase. I think that continues because of this fear. And if you're watching markets, and this was a mistake on my part. I mentioned in another video, but the massive bond buying right before Russia invaded. Big key players do know what's going to happen before it happens. They are paying attention. It's likely that the government knew the invasion was going to happen way before it did as well. Of course, they're just not open about that. But if you are paying attention, you can't spot this. And so that's one of the things I'm also watching to see, like, if we get indication that China wants to make a move. And we've seen China test the U.S. more. They were sending fighter jets into Taiwan territory. We saw a few reports about that, and I'm hoping we don't see much more about it. I hope it's pretty clear that, like, that's our line in the sand. And it is existential to defend Taiwan. And of course, China's claim to Taiwan, I don't want to make a comparison there, but lots of people are hypothesizing the base case for China wanting Taiwan comparative to Russia wanting Ukraine. China is just purely trying to expand and has nefarious intentions with being a superpower, displacing us. And obviously we don't want China being a superpower and in control of everything. And generally no one likes China. And so that's another thing, is like, it's clear at this point, thankfully, that there is no significant alliance between Russia and China. It seems more of like China's just stepping aside while Russia does what they're going to do. They don't seem to be working together in any close relationship, and now they seem, China seems sentimental to this because it also justifies in a way what they want to do, which is invade Taiwan, which they have said many, many times they will do. And like Putin, they tend to follow through with what they're going to say, unlike the allies, us, who keep making claims that we can't back up, which makes us look like weak idiots. So I wish we would quit doing that. But the more positive side of things, like coming out of the last Cold War, things, got better. There was a way out. This is not the end of the world. We're still undefeated when it comes to the world ending. And I think that the U.S. will be able to maintain their position as a superpower over the next 100 years. But we so badly need to clean up our act and piece this together and start working together. And what happened in Ukraine is unfortunate, but it's done. What's happened is happened. There's no reason to go out of our way to make things worse. And the people trying to get people charged up and pounding war drums is not going to help the situation. But I'm worried about it. I can't ignore, how much sway the media can cause, especially when it's, so propagandic. Like, I don't know if propagandic is a word. When it seems like there's so much propaganda and not people covering the facts, not doing historical analysis, not trying to understand their enemy. Like, you don't engage with enemies without understanding your enemy, and you don't make empty threats, because then you just look weak and dumb. And that's exactly what Putin's done. He's made the UN look weak and stupid. He's shown that they can't follow through on their threats. And these sanctions are just so nonsensical. He saw them a mile away, did it anyways. To act, it's just all talk out of these guys. And yeah, I've had it on enough. I'll continue to give updates as stuff comes out and try to provide more insight to what's going on. I hope you found this helpful. I'll see you on the next episode.